It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and welcome to Christmas Weekend 2006. Christmas will be on Tuesday this year in 2006, so we're looking at the movies of December 22nd, and got 5 movies here. A lot of them are really good movies. A lot of them are really good films. Some of them are very underrated films. We've got Ben Stiller starring in a hybrid fantasy comedy adventure directed by Sean Levy. We have Sylvester Stallone returning as Rocky Balboa. Robert De Niro directs a star-studded ensemble called The Good Shepherd. McGee tries something very different with his latest film. And we also have Clint Eastwood's second part of his 2 films he did about World War II, Letters from Iwo Jima. But before we get to those movies, let's talk about the biggest new release of the weekend, which was undoubtedly Night at the Museum.
I'm Larry Daly. I've got a job interview with Cecil Fredericks.
Let me point you in the right direction.
Right. Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes,
He was our 4th president, right?
26.
26.
This is the kid who wants to be the new night guard.
He looks like a weirdie.
I'll give you a little tour. This is the diorama room.
I remember these little guys.
On the left there is your Attila the Hun. And this is the Hall of African Medals.
Guy's cute.
He's quite a little ball of fun, aren't you, Dexter? It can get a little spooky around here at night, so you might want to put a few lights on. And the most important thing of all to remember, don't let anything in or out.
Out?
Everything in this museum comes to life at night. It's freaking awesome. This is a museum. I cannot tolerate this type of chaos.
Unleash hell!
Oh my God. Can I have those keys?
Fire up the Iron Horse, boys.
Oh! For crying out loud!
Come to work with me tonight. You won't be disappointed. This is so not worth $11.50 an hour.
So many things work to this movie's advantage. The fact that it was coming out on Christmas weekend, the movie is set around winter time. There's literally, the climax is literally taking place inside of a wintry New York City. In a wintry New York City, I should say, not inside a wintry New York City. This was just pitch perfect timing for this movie in general. And this movie doesn't get the proper respect it deserves. I mean, it's not a great film by any means necessary, but it's a perfect movie to come out around the holiday season. If you want to go see a good, big family adventure film, this one is definitely the one to see. And this is based off of a book, by the way. This is based off, I didn't know this was actually based off of a 1993 children's book by a Croatian author, Milan Trenk. Which then again, that makes sense because they do make references to him in this movie, and as well as the other movies as well. But in the film, Ben Stiller plays a divorced father who applies for a job as a night watchman at New York City's American Museum of Natural History, and subsequently discovers that the exhibits come to life at night, animated by a magical Egyptian artifact, protected by Kamen Ra, played by, no, not Kamen Ra, that's later on in the series, but he's played by, he's played by Rami Malek. I can't remember who. The Mummy of Akhman Ra. Akhman Ra is the one I'm thinking of here. Like, I'm thinking of the sequel, which has Hank Azaria as Kamen Ra, and then they did an animated sequel. But Rami Malek, pre-Mr. Robot, pre-Oscar win for Bohemian Rhapsody, which I still don't think he should have won. He deserved to win for his performance in that, but I always remember when I think of Rami Malek and Bohemian Rhapsody, when they went to the Oscars and they showed the clip from the movie. They didn't show any of his acting. They showed him singing, but not singing like lip syncing to Freddie Mercury's actual song. Like, I always remember that the movie they were so afraid that Why not show an actual clip of Rami Malek acting instead of just showing him lip syncing? I mean, that just makes no sense whatsoever. But we'll get to that movie eventually down the road. But we're going to talk about Night at the Museum. And like I said before, it's a really good movie. It is a very ambitious, impressively put together movie with some really cool special effects overall. The concept overall is very fun too. You know, Ben Stiller working in this museum at night and everything comes to life at nighttime. It's kind of like the complete polar opposite of a movie like The Relic, which, if you don't remember that movie, that was a movie where they had this creature locked up inside the museum, and he starts attacking people at nighttime. And imagine that, except much more family-friendly and not as violent as that movie. Although it's a great movie, by the way. The Relic is an underrated little gem. Definitely check that out if you want to see something a really cool, underrated little horror film. But this is a really good movie, too. Ben Stiller, I think, plays the part of the straight man in here pretty well. Like, he is the straight man in this crazy world that he finds himself in. Carla Gugino, she's okay in the movie. She isn't anything too special. She's just there to kind of be the love interest to Ben Stiller's character, which is funny because they completely abandoned her in the sequels afterwards. But you got Robin Williams playing Teddy Roosevelt, which pitch-perfect casting right there. I mean, that's the one thing you take away from this movie. Robin Williams is amazing as Teddy Roosevelt in this film. You see Owen Wilson in there as one of the little soldiers. Steve Coogan is also the other soldier. And they have a lot of good fun moments in there. Like, I always love the scene where, like, everything is epic to them, but then you cut back to cut the camera back, and it's like nothing at all is happening. It's just like they do this a couple times in these movies, and it's always a fun little gag here and there. The part that really got to me the first time I saw the one thing is this movie has a really good twist involving Dick Van Dyke's character as well as Mickey Rooney and Bill Cobbs. You don't really see it until the third act. They're the bad guys in the movie, and when I first saw this movie, I was just like, okay, that took me completely off guard because I was not expecting Dick Van Dyke, Mickey Rooney, and Bill Cobbs to be the bad guys in this movie. I would have thought somebody like Ricky Gervais. I thought he was going to be the bad guy overall, but no, it was those three guys, and I gotta give the movie credit. It really does take you by surprise the first time you see it, and like I said before, this movie is nothing spectacular, nothing too amazing. It's a good fun movie. It's a type of movie that you take the kids to it's on a Saturday afternoon, and you have a good time with it. The kids like it, and you as an adult can find a lot to admire about it as well. It also helps that it's directed by Sean Levy, and I've talked about this director before. He's a good comfort food director. He can make movies that are not great films overall, but they're really good movies that you can just watch and just have a good time with it. He knows how to entertain his audiences. I mean, he's proven that this year with Deadpool and Wolverine. You got a script written by Robert Ben Garant and Thomas Lennon, of course, the guys behind Reno 911. They write a lot of good stuff, too. Not everything they've written is great, but this is one of those movies where they know exactly what they're doing here. Chris Columbus is the producer on here. Of course, he usually makes a lot of good movies as the producer. Not always, but sometimes. But this is the guy that did Home Alone. This is the guy that was the producer on Jingle All the Way. I mean, he's made a lot of good stuff overall. And the film itself is just a good, fun movie. If you go into it with the right mindset, if you know you're not going to see anything too spectacular overall, but in terms of story, but the comedy is very good. The writing is very good. The visuals are very impressive. The adventure is very good, and you and the kids can get a good enjoyment out of it. I mean, these movies, they're good movies. They're solidly entertaining films. They're not meaning to go above and beyond. They're just there for you to have a good time, and they do just that. And like I said before, this was perfect timing to release this at Christmas time, and people ate it up. I mean, not only was the movie a massive hit, but it actually helped the Real Life Museum of Natural History in New York City see massive masses coming in there as a result of this movie's success. And for a movie to do that, that's pretty impressive, because museums really are not that impressive to go to, but a movie like this does that, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, this movie's doing something right, obviously. So yeah, it's a really good movie. Not a great film overall, but like I said, you go into it with the right mindset, you can have a good time overall. It's a good, fun family adventure film, and I really like it a lot. I like these movies a lot. They're not great films overall. They're silly, they're ridiculous, over-the-top fun, and I think that's the reasons why you go see it. They're good, fun films. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Night at the Museum, a good, fun time overall. Speaking of good, fun times, our next movie, Rocky Balboa, is back in. Sylvester Stallone stars in Rocky Balboa.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit. we keep moving forward.
Who was the greatest? Who was the best of all time? If two athletes from different eras could actually compete against one another, who would come out on top? In one corner, the reigning champion Mason the Line Dixon. He'll be pitted against the former two-time heavyweight champion Rocky Balboa. Computer says Rocky Balboa would be triumphant.
I think there's still some stuff in the basement.
What basement?
In here. I think I want to, like, fight. You know, nothing big, small stuff, like locally.
What are you trying to prove, Pop?
I thought you might want to get involved.
Don't you think you're too, old?
I think your brain's losing altitude.
You heard Rocky Balboa applied for a license. You want me to fight a guy that I can beat with both hands tied behind my back?
That computer fight got a lot of people curious.
Yeah, but I ain't interested in getting, like, mangled and embarrassed.
People are gonna think you're going crazy.
What's crazy about standing toe-to-toe saying, I am?
If this is something that you gotta do, then you do it. Fighters fight.
To beat this guy, you need speed. You don't have it. You've got calcium deposits on most of your joints, so sparring is out. I had that problem. So what we'll be calling on is blunt force trauma. Heavy-duty punches that will rattle his ancestors. Let's start building some hurting bombs.
Yeah, we ain't playing with you. Hockey, the press has labeled you a Balboasaurus. How do you feel about that? It's a fight, head bustin', we gon' hit him.
Larry, why is this billed as an exhibition?
So they wouldn't have to call it an execution.
It's a fight, head bustin', it's a fight.
It takes guts climbing back in that ring knowing you're going to take a beating. Ain't nothing over till it's over.
Where's that from? The 80s?
That's probably the 70s.
Rocky Balboa.
Can you do it?
I think this movie definitely proves that, yes, Rocky Balboa can still do it. I mean, talk about a great trailer that just pumps you up and gets you excited for the return of Rocky Balboa after all these years, after the last movie was such a major disappointment, and a disappointing conclusion to the series as a whole. And I mean, the whole movie is just a great love letter to what makes Rocky Balboa, this Rocky character, so special. The plot of the movie here, as you can tell from the trailer, you have Stallone once again as Balboa. Now he's an aging small restaurant owner, and he's now challenged to an exhibition fight by a hothead young boxer named Mason Dixon, who's played by Antonio Tarver. So basically, just imagine the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, except this one is much more entertaining and actually features real boxing in it, and it wasn't just seen as a freaking spectacle, which you could say this movie predicted the future, because I think this movie did literally predict the future, except, unlike Rocky Balboa, in which Stallone actually makes it fun to watch the fight, you're just watching the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, just wondering, why am I even watching this? Like, what was the whole point of this whole thing? And just to watch Jake Paul beat up a guy that's already getting paid millions of dollars to just sit there. I mean, yeah, I'm going off topic here, but I'm sorry. That's one of the worst things I've seen this year in general. And the fact that people were suckered into it, people bought into it overall, like, it was just a mess of just a whole disaster altogether. But Rocky Balboa is anything but a disaster. It returned the Rocky franchise back to its former glory, and it did a very good job of continuing the story of Rocky ever since Rocky V. Of course, now his wife Adrian has died of cancer a couple years prior to the setting of this movie, so no Talia Shire in here. So then I replaced her with Geraldine Hughes, excuse me. But she's, this is a movie where when I first saw the trailer, I swear I thought that was Jenna Fisher, because she looks so much like Jenna Fisher from The Office, Pam Beesly, and it's not her, but man, she does a very good job creating some nice chemistry with Rocky in here. Like, Stallone and her really do work off each other very well. Paulie is back. Burt Young is really good in here. Milo Ventimiglia playing Rocky's son in here. I thought he had a very good role in here in general. You got a lot of good people in here. Tony Burton, Burt Sugar, the boxing historian. Of course, you got to have Michael Buffer in here. I mean, there's a lot to admire about the movie. And I like that it is a legitimately good love letter to the Rocky series while also advancing the story overall. It does a very good job of showing that, Rocky really still has what it takes. And, I know a lot of people were very skeptical when this movie came out. Like, why is he doing another Rocky movie when he's in his... I think he was in his 60s when this came out, if I'm not mistaken. Was he in his 60s? He would have turned 60 that year. 1946 was when he was born. He's 78 years old now, and the dude still looks pretty good. Looks like he could still beat up somebody, but... yeah, this is a nice goodbye to Rocky. Like, for a guy to go in there at 60 years old, the whole movie overall, like, I love the fact that it doesn't go the route you think it's going to go down. And I like the fact that it does keep you on the edge of your seat. Like, you're wondering, how is this fight going to end? Is Rocky really going to beat up this guy? Is the other guy going to beat him up? Or what's going to happen here? And it's a satisfying conclusion at the end. You know, you don't get to see what you think you're going to see, but you learn a lot of things about how tough you can really be overall. And it's a really good film. It's a really impressively put together film that still holds up after all these years. And you see why Rocky overall is still so special after all these years. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen the advancement of the storyline now that it's now not about Rocky anymore. It's about Creed, Michael B. Jordan, and what he's done with those movies in general. And I think the Creed movies have all been really good. They've each gotten better and better with every passing film, with Creed 3 being a really good movie overall. Okay, maybe Creed 2 is a little lesser than the first Creed movie, but Creed 3, I think, is the best of the Creed movies so far. And I like the fact that that's continuing the storyline from Rocky. Sylvester Stallone doesn't have to keep coming back as Rocky Balboa, proving that he could still fight overall. Even though there was one other movie that came out not too long after this where it was Stallone as a boxer, which I think is actually a pretty fun movie overall. But we'll eventually get to that when we get to 2013, if you know which one I'm talking about. But bottom line, this is a really good movie. This is a really fun film. It's a really good movie that shows that Sylvester Stallone still has what it takes to tell a compelling story. This isn't a typical Rocky sequel. This is more like on the lines of Rocky 2, where it felt like he was really trying to advance the story more. It wasn't like Rocky 3 or 4 or 5, where he was just going way too over the top because anything he touched would turn to gold in the 1980s, except for Rocky 5. But yeah, this is one that definitely is a really good movie. Probably my second favorite one of the Rocky series in general, not including the Creed movies. But this is probably my second favorite Rocky film besides the first one. It's a great movie. Can't recommend it enough. Rocky Balboa. It's a must-watch. So let's move on to our next movie, which is Robert De Niro making his second directorial effort after A Bronx Tale. This is the ensemble, The Good Shepherd.
Asking you to be a good citizen. The Good Shepherd is the godfather of CIA movies. David Anson of Newsweek calls it mesmerizing and spellbinding. And Larry King raves it's the best spy movie ever made. Matt Damon is phenomenal. Angelina Jolie is remarkable. And Robert De Niro is as good a director as he is an actor.
The CIA.
And the nasty little secrets.
The Good Shepherd, rated R. Starts tomorrow.
So this is actually based off the events of the life of James Jesus Angleton, and it's advertised as telling the history of the birth of the counterintelligence in the CIA. And you have Matt Damon playing Edward Wilson, who's a senior CIA officer who discovers a mole in his department following the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. And the film delves into Wilson's complex life, starting from his college years at Yale University, from his initiation to the Skull and Bones fraternity, into his recruitment and intelligence work in World War II. His personal life is marked with a strained marriage to Margaret Clover Russell, played by Angelina Jolie, and after a series of affairs that underscores the sacrifices and moral compromises inherent in espionage work, the narrative unfolds through a mix of present-day events and flashbacks exploring the origins of the CIA. The cast also includes Alec Baldwin, William Hurt, Joe Pesci, and John Turturro in it, and just kind of like with The Good German from the last week's show, from the last episode we did, a lot of good ambition overall, but just a botched execution overall. I mean, the trailer makes it seem like it's kind of a prequel to The Departed, because The Departed kind of is a very similar plot to it if you're just watching that trailer there. And yeah, other than that though, the movie itself really is not that engaging or interesting whatsoever. I mean, yeah, it's cool to see Joe Pesci back on the big screen after a long time. I don't think he was in a movie. It's been a while since I saw Joe Pesci in between Casino and this. I can't remember if he did anything else. He may have done a couple of other things, but they weren't memorable films overall. But you know, him, Alec Baldwin, William Hurt, John Turturro. It's bad enough. The Departed comparisons are bad enough when you also include that both Matt Damon and Alec Baldwin are in this movie overall, and I think it really hurts the film in the long run. I just don't think there really is an engaging story here to really compel this film overall. I mean, Robert De Niro is not a bad director. I think A Bronx Tale was a really good, underrated film that showed what he can do as a director. And yeah, there's some ambition here, and there's some really good times when he's showing that, hey, he's got what it takes overall as a director, but as a writer, as written as a script as a whole, it definitely needed another rewrite. Even though this is written by Eric Roth, who of course wrote Forrest Gump. He's written a lot of great movies. He would write Star Is Born, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Munich, Dune. The guy is a great writer, but this just isn't. This isn't a film that. This is a film that needed another rewrite. I think this is a film that, if it had another rewrite, it probably would have been a whole lot better than what it is. But as it is, it's just not worth it. I mean, the cast is trying their best to hold it together, but it's just not enough to save the film in the end. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's a skip on The Good Shepherd. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next film, probably the most underrated movie that came out this whole weekend, and that is Matthew McConaughey in We Are Marshall.
We're good. Let's go.
I love you, Christopher.
Hey, that was a big hit today.
Notice?
I'm proud of it. We are Marshall.
Hollow song.
What's happened?
All 75 people are dead in the greatest disaster in college sports history.
This is our team.
I think you should have this back.
Chris gave it to you.
I promised mothers that I'd look after their sons. There's not one of them left.
You might cancel the program. This ain't right. I'm sorry.
Jacqueline Gale called. Says he may be interested in the open coaching job.
Why do you want this job? When I heard about what had happened, the only thing I could think about was how bad it would hurt if I was to lose it for them. And I thought, hell, maybe I can help. This is my varsity team, huh? It's a new name, man. We gotta get creative about who we're going after.
Ever shake the ball before?
No, sir.
Rough it! You think you're the only one that's had it rough?
We're not honoring him, Jack. We're disgracing him. This is not about the game. This is about what happened to this town.
There's something I think y'all need to hear.
We cannot forget that. This is your opportunity to rise from these ashes. Funeral's in today. One day we're going to be like every other team, where winning is everything, and nothing else matters. And when that day comes, that's when we'll honor them. What day is it, son?
Game day.
What day?
Game day.
Time to play till the whistle blows.
You know, figures that Mick G does something that's completely outside of his norm, and what a shocker. Nobody wants to go see it, which I think it's a shame because I really like this movie a lot. This is a movie that depicts the aftermath of the 1970 plane crash that killed 75 people, 37 players of the Marshall University Thundering Herd football team, 5 coaches, 2 athletic trainers, the athletic director, 25 boosters, and the airport crew of 5. And Matthew McConaughey stars as the new head coach that's going to try to turn the team back around. You have Matthew Fox starring as assistant coach, his first major motion picture role following his success on Lost. David Strathairn is the U.S. president. Robert Patrick is the coach is the Marshall coach that ends up dying. You also have Ian McShane, Anthony Mackie, Kate Mara, January Jones. Just a terrific cast overall in here. And this is a really good movie, man. This is a movie that I was really impressed by how much I really enjoyed it when it first came out. I mean, it was a movie that, yeah, it's a typical underdog sports story, but they do a really good job of keeping the message really coming through here that, you know, just because of this massive tragedy doesn't mean that everything needs to shut down completely, and that you have to give people some hope in the world. And this movie does a very good job of showing that. Not only does it show what Mick G could do as a director, but for Matthew McConaughey, man, like, you know, this was around that time when he was just known mostly for his romantic comedies. Everyone forgets that the dude could be a good dramatic actor. I mean, he's been in stuff like A Time to Kill, Contact. Of course, he would later win an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club. The guy can be a really good dramatic actor. And, like, it's, you know, this was around a time whenever anybody thinks of Matthew McConaughey, they think, oh, you mean that guy that's in those terrible romantic comedies? But, yeah, he's done those, but a movie like this shows what this guy really can do as an actor as a whole. I think he does a great job of handling this performance in here. I think he's fantastic in the film. Everybody else plays their parts very well here. It's a very uplifting story. It's a film that I really don't think gets enough attention because of the fact that most people saw it as just like, okay, it's another one of these underdog sports movies here. But then again, if Disney probably put this out, this probably would have been a bigger hit overall because they were really cooking with those underdog sports films at the time. But because it was Warner Brothers and the fact that it was being pushed into this release date with all these big holiday releases, yeah, nobody went to go see it, unfortunately. But it's a shame because they really should, because it's a really good film. It's a film that I think deserves a lot more attention. It shows what McG can do as a director as a whole, doing something that's outside of his norm completely. It's a great movie. I really like it a lot. It's definitely one that I recommend people check out. It's a really good film. We Are Marshall, absolutely a well-made film. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is Clint Eastwood's second film about World War II, released in 2006. The much better film, in my opinion, and that is Letters from Iwo Jima.
I lived in California, far away.
Oklahoma is where I'm from.
ここである軍人として止血すべきだ。ここでこのまま死ぬのと生きて戦い続けることと。
戦局最後の葛藤に直面する。
残ってるのはライフルだけです。
今や弾丸付き見つかれ。とこしえにお別れ申し上げ。諸君らの霊に涙し黙祷を捧げる日が必ずや来るであろう。世は常に諸事の先頭にある。
So yeah, Letters from Iwo Jima is essentially showing the Battle of Iwo Jima from the perspective of the Japanese soldiers, and it's a companion piece, of course, to Flags of Our Fathers, which depicted the same battle from the American viewpoint. And where Letters from Iwo Jima really succeeded better than Flags of Our Fathers to me is that it tells the much more interesting story and has more of the interesting characters involved and the most interesting conflicts involved. It shows the good and evil on both sides of the field, and it's a really impressively put together movie. I mean, this is a film that does show the good and bad sides of the war and both sides of the battle here, and I think that's a film that that's something that needs to be taken into consideration with a movie like this, and I think it does a very good job of playing it. The differences between Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, mostly to me, is not just those things, but also Flags of Our Fathers seemed a little bit more mainstream than something like Letters from Iwo Jima, which seems much more independent. And you can't believe that this is Clint Eastwood directing it too, because this is done in Japanese. This is done in Japanese, although it was produced by a lot of American companies, obviously, because the first movie was like that. And you know, this is a film that does show both the, like I said, both of the good sides, the good and bad sides of the war, and the sides of the battle here, because there are a lot of things that are very complicated during this situation here, and you have a lot of great, strong performances overall, including, of course, Ken Watanabe, who will never usually put in a bad performance overall. I mean, the guy has a lot of acting range as a whole, and it really did feel like Clint Eastwood was putting more effort into this movie. He puts more heart and soul into this film in telling a more concrete story with the more interesting scenarios and situations, because Flag of Our Fathers definitely felt like a more mainstream film overall and didn't feel like a film that was really digging deep too much into what they were trying to accomplish, and it really hurt itself in the long run in terms of what they were trying to do with that film. But this is the film that really shows why these two films came together, and I don't know if you could make this movie work with both movies if they were just one long film. I think it's really a better idea to have these two movies separated, because you see where the real effort goes into with the story, like with what Clint Eastwood was trying to do with both of these films. Not to say that Flags of Our Fathers is bad overall, and it is a necessary film to follow along with Letters from Iwo Jima. But if I'm being asked which one is the better film overall, this is definitely the film I would recommend the most. You can definitely feel where the power of the storyline came into play with this movie more than it did with Flags of Our Fathers. And like I said, if you're going to watch one of these two movies, this is the one to do it with. But I wouldn't say don't completely not see Flags of Our Fathers first. Just be prepared for the much better movie to come with Letters from Iwo Jima. This one I think is the much better film overall. Flags of Our Fathers is just a good movie. This is a great movie. One of the year's best films. And so with all of that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and we'll wrap 2006 up on the next episode with 6 limited releases, but notable movies in particular, including the first remake of Black Christmas, which is, I'm just going to say right now, much better than the 2019 Me Too version that came out. If you remember Blumhouse's great version of it. Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. Alfonso Cuarón directing Children of Men. We also have Judi Dench and Cate Blanchett starring in the drama Notes on a Scandal. Perfume, the Story of a Murderer. And also Renee Zellweger and Ewan McGregor starring in Miss Potter. So 6 films to wrap up 2006, and then I'm guessing we're going to jump into 2007 leftovers the next week, although there's a couple movies that come out. Or am I thinking just one movie came out? No, there's a couple movies that came out, so I'll figure it out, and then I'll give you a rundown of what I'm going to do for the next episode. But next episode after that. But the next episode we'll look at those 6 movies I mentioned before. But with all of that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode. Also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, and hit that bell because you get updates on when new videos come out, and we post videos here every day. So, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.